Maria! Oh, that's right, folks. We're back with another Pablo Larraín film. We've actually talked about a couple of his films already. I really liked Spencer when it came out. I thought that was really good. And El Condo, when that came out, was that last year? A year before? I can't even remember. That one was fine. But now we're back with Maria, kind of wrapping up his impromptu trilogy about influential women in a specific era of existence who are operating in the third act of their careers or whatever. This time we're focusing on Maria Callas, who is the famed opera singer from the 60s and 50s and 70s, and how her life comes to a tragic end in the events leading up to her final days. So I do want to talk about this film as a standalone film, but I think it's very interesting to look at it in comparison to the unofficial trilogy of Pablo's films involving these tragically framed women. You know, the first one was Jackie, which is a really interesting portrayal of that woman at a very crucial moment in her life, literally the moment after losing her husband. And then you have Princess Di and Spencer and how she feels suffocated in this world she creates. Those are both really well-made movies, and I do think both of those films are stronger than Maria, but I do think I like Angelina Jolie's performance as Maria more than I like the performances of the other two leads of those women. So it's very complex. I'm for this movie. I think it's very interesting. It talks about the prison that is fame and how one person can be trapped with the one thing that makes them strong. It's kind of like the price of beauty thing we talked about recently with the substance, how you're always chasing that one thing. This is more like the world has told you this is what you are, and you'll never escape that thing of your beauty. You can literally spend your whole life singing, but are you truly singing for yourself, or are you singing for the benefit of others? And it plays with that in a very mature and very instinctual setting. I think compared to all the other movies I just mentioned, like Spencer and Jackie, this is a little more ethereal and heady. It's more like watching a woman deal with stuff herself. The other ones aren't really about a woman dying. This is about her death. We see Maria's final moments. And I think that just shows you a woman spiraling in her own head. And that could kind of take away from some of the moments. Now I understand the allure of trying to tell this narrative through a meta story of the snapshots where we're capturing very specific moments, and we'll have a marker come up that says the ending, exasperated or something, and then click it, and then we'll film the ending or something. So it's very filmic and cinematic, just talking about the language of film, very metaphorical in that way. In a sense, the other ones aren't. And that doesn't perfectly work. It really wants to have a very grounded portrayal. And I think you could have a grounded portrayal in that framework with, her delusion of all the pills she is on. But the narrative around that and the way we present that, it does get mixed around and shuffled a lot. And doesn't have, a cohesive way of presenting itself. The tones, they don't shift radically, but the state in which the tone is being framed, it's very melancholy and bleak, but that melancholy and bleakness will be either in a high concept fantasy in your own mind world or the stark harshness of reality, and the two don't blend perfectly. They don't connect on the way you would want them to, which is a shame, because there could be a lot of interesting stuff to explore here. We just saw Maestro recently, that came out last year. The idea of the big sweeping concert halls and these people who are defined by their brilliance and doing this one specific rendition of something, capturing something in a real moment, that is really beautiful. And I think it does want to play with that story a bit. But every time we kind of leave the central focus to do the flashbacks, you kind of start to wonder if we're either padding the story out to give you more context for this woman because we don't trust our audience to understand how she's been confined. I think that's part of it, actually. I feel part of the thing I'm not the most happy with about this piece is the way it treats its audience like we are unaware of the events of this woman's life. Now, I'm not the biggest Maria Callas fan. It's a name I know. I have known the name before that. I think a lot of people who are younger than me wouldn't, but you can get a lot of context clues about like the way people talk about her being alone and not being with her husband or the person that she's loved, and the way that is clearly two different things, right? So there is something you can explore there, and they do it in a very simplistic way, or Pablo Larraín does it in a very simplistic way of just telling you through the flashbacks, and it doesn't feel as good in terms of some of the other movies he's done with, talking about stuff in the flashback. There's a weird moment where JFK shows up and it's just kind of like, I talked about you before. Yeah, nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys. And you're like, what? What are we doing? That was a very weird moment to me. And I'm like, that does not feel necessary, having this sequence in. I know what we're trying to say through it. How because of the people we are, we'll never... We can go... it's a really good line, and I think the line is kind of like the whole point of the movie, is we can go anywhere in the world, but we'll never truly get away. I think that's very interesting, and an idea for this film that is not presented in a lot of the later scenes. Now, on a technical level, it has the beautiful sweeping shots, the big cathedrals and auditoriums we're standing in. The houses that we walk into are gorgeous. The cinematography is breathtaking. It is really well paced with some really cool energy. I'm 100% in for like the vibe it's setting off. The starkness of the colors. It's very gold, but like a matted gold and beige, and just very simplistic in the style. There's nothing flashy or showy until we get to like the main character herself. And I think that works really well. It's very much in tone of a lot of the other movies we've mentioned, where it's like big sweeping halls. We have a wide lens. We're going to film everything for you to see. And that's really cool because it just hones in on how like alone this woman is. I think even more compared to the other people we've talked about, like Jackie Kennedy and Princess Di. This woman in this final moments of her life is more alone than those two were. And that is like a starkness and reality I really like. Like there's something so compelling about like doing the biopic thing and talking about like a woman in her third act of life. That's kind of an angle that all of these Pablo Larraín films play with, and also something that this movie in particular wants like Maria to address about herself. And I think it handles it with a really interesting just sadness, which not every director or creator would go to. And I think what makes that really work well too is how it can kind of on a subtextual level connect to Angelina Jolie and where she's at in her career. Now, this is not me saying Angelina Jolie is at like the third act of her career, but she was very prominent for a long period of time. She was like the face of a generation, the most beautiful woman to ever exist. And then, she gets married, she has kids, she steps away from the limelight a little bit, does certain projects here and there, does a Maleficent or something. And now that her kids are older and new information may be coming out about her ex and that kind of stuff, maybe we're seeing not a resurgence, but like a rekindling of a passion, which is both like what Maria Callas is trying to do throughout the film and what we can see from Angelina Jolie. Women who were once the talk of the town reduced to, empty nest syndrome, where suddenly maybe you're not as surrounded by the love or admiration you had, and you have to learn to deal with that. I'm not talking about Angelina Jolie's life, just more like the popular culture light in which we shine upon her. Like that is some subtextual thing where it's like the resurgence of both of these women trying to rebuild what their career was and maybe never being able to reach the heights that they did 20 years earlier. That's definitely something in there. I will say this, there's been a lot of talk, and on this channel too, there's been a lot of talk about the Oscars, and I'm a huge Oscar junkie, I love that stuff. I don't know if I'd put Jolie as my, winner. She's definitely gonna make my short list. This is a really, really good performance, and it's like what I was saying about the metatextual level of, somebody in their 50s playing someone in their 50s who lost it all. This is a performance that only Jolie could give at this stage in her career. I don't think a younger Jolie could do this thing. It is very subdued. It is very quiet. It never gets loud until she has to sing. And there's a blend of her actually practically singing mixed with vocals from Maria. I don't know what level of that, if there's some real authenticity to it or whatever's the fakeness. But she's doing some of the singing. It's not Rami Malek doing Freddie Mercury. There's Jolie is singing. She worked with a vocal coach, right? When she's on stage, that is when everything lets loose in either the anger or the glee or the sorrow. It doesn't matter. Like, that is when you're seeing like somebody literally expressing themselves like the only way they know how. This is like their one escape. And when they realize like this isn't going the way you want, you feel that in every single subtle tick of the body. This is what you love to see from this actress. So talented and such a stellar performance. My God, is this performance transcendent. They dress Jolie up in some of like the best looking costumes you've ever seen. I love the aesthetic of every single person in this film. She is just so transformative. Like, you just forget you're watching Jolie. This is somebody so committed to this one specific performance. It just captivates throughout every single time period we take this story to. And every time she's wearing those big old glasses, God, she's beautiful. I love Angelina Jolie. I think she is gorgeous and stunning. And this movie just captures a significance to her beauty that's really propping her up on a pedestal, which we have in Hollywood for a long time. It's like, look at this radiant woman. Maybe her voice isn't there anymore, but we're still seeing something that we don't see anymore. And that is both for Maria Callas and for Angelina Jolie. A brilliant movie. The supporting cast is incredible. Just a bunch of people trying to help her through the situation. You're dealing with a prima donna who doesn't want to accept her limitations. It's very beautiful. This is a very beautiful movie. It gets kind of lost in like what it's trying to say about its narrative and how it's handling that with some weird pacing and some weird like mix matching of blending when it comes to like the real world and like fantastical stuff that doesn't work great. But this is really cool. It's a really solid film that fits into the style we've seen from things like Jackie and Spencer. Both of those are good. Maria is right up there. Just maybe, you know, of the three, it's the weakest. I would probably go, oh my God, they're all so interesting. I would go maybe Spencer, Jackie, Maria. But performances, I would go Jolie, Natalie Portman, Kristen Stewart. You're gonna ask me to pick my three favorite ladies, you know? It's hard. I also like all the women that they're portraying. It's really interesting. Maria is really fun. So, Maria, I was thought about doing like an operatic singing part, but I'm like, I'm gonna spare us all that shit. I'm going to give this film a 7 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.